What is up, you beautiful people? I'm Jake. I'm a data analyst. Jake, the data guy. Let's put that up here. Woo, the data guy. Anyways, today we're going to be looking at the Spotify API and finding how we can pull data from it so that you could then have it in a format available to go visualize it. So specifically, what are we going to cover in this video? We're going to cover setting up API and permissions. We're going to then create our environment in Anaconda to code. Then we're going to review the code that I created and understand exactly how that's going to get us the data. And then we're going to be showing our results. And I actually already made mine into a dashboard. So this is more of a review, but we're going to go in detail so you would be able to recreate this, find your own listening habits, your top songs, your top artists. And there's actually really cool things with the Spotify API, some of which I don't even know how to do, but you could definitely play along with it. But essentially, this is just going to be an intro video. If you're interested in learning about APIs, you're interested in your listening habits. So without further ado, let's jump in. All right, you beautiful people. Now I'm down here. You see me? Hello to the world. And up here, up here is the Spotify for developers, right? And you could definitely get there. Just type in like developer Spotify. Here's the HTML, or sorry, the HTTP to get there. But you can definitely just type in like Spotify API or Spotify developers, and you'll be pulled up with this page. And it's super, super simple to do, which I love because if it was difficult, I might have not been able to do this, but luckily I was able to do it, and you can too. And we're going to go over how you can do it here. Shouldn't take that much time. So there's three steps to this, and it shows you right here on the overview, getting started. You're going to log into the dashboard using your Spotify account. Then you're going to create an app and select Web API for the question asking what API to use. And then we're going to get our access credentials, and then we're going to use that access credentials in our API requests. So all of our API requests are going to be down here. And you could do a lot with the API. So you could see here, retrieve data from your favorite artist, album, or show. That's what we're going to be doing here today. You could search for Spotify content, control and interact with playback. So you could like play and resume. I guess this is like if you're creating an application. I don't really know what this is, to be honest. Maybe that's something explored in the future videos. And you could manage like your personal libraries, create playlists. So there's actually really cool things you can do, but we're going to keep it simple, student today, the KISS principle, as I like to say. And we're just going to follow these three steps here. We're going to pull some data and we'll see how it comes out. So let's just jump in. So first things first, log into the dashboard. So we're going to do here, open this link if you please, and it should bring you to this page. And if it doesn't, you'll just have to sign in. If you want to add me on Spotify to see my playlists and such, and I'd even follow you back. So Jake1756, give me that follow, shameless plug. So we're just gonna, I already created two apps right here, but yours will probably be empty unless you've done a similar process like this before. But we're gonna go jump into here, press create app, and we'll say Spotify data pull for YouTube video. And then we'll just do a short little description. This is the app, so we are able to pull data about songs and artists for my YouTube video. Woo! Okay. Website. I guess I'm not really sure, but this isn't going to be tied to a website. And then redirect URIs. So what is this essentially? URIs where users can be redirected after authentication success or failure. Now, this is probably not going to be that important if you're just creating it for yourself, which we are creating it for ourselves. So I'm just going to use my local URI. And I think they even give you, I thought they gave you an example of this. And now I'm failing here. But let's see, is there like an example URI? Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and use the one. Okay, right here. So you won't need this parameter in this example, so let's just use this, right? Make sure you don't copy the period, and you just get your local host. And I hope this works. Usually you could use like 127 as well. And I would, let's see if this works essentially. So what if we add that? Cool. So hopefully this works. If not, I'll make an edit to this video and we'll come back, and if it didn't work, put the edit here. Okay, so we're back here. If you didn't see anything, that means we're all good to go. And if not, you'll see that this right here has been changed. So after that, it told us, okay, we're using it for a data pull. So to check web API, if you want to read the developer terms of service and design guidelines, I've never once read them in my entire life. But if you love law, you love safety, I recommend you read those things. And we're going to go ahead and save this. And here, so we can monitor, I guess, who's coming and using this Spotify data pool. Again, this is for like developers. So I assume somehow you can put this into an application you're creating, and other people can now use this somehow, some way. I don't really have all the information on that. I'm newer to APIs, but I can get you through this process. So just bear with me on this. So that was it. We just did step one, right? Step one out of 4 steps. We set up our API and permissions. So next up, we're going to be creating our environment to code. And you might have your own process for this, but what I use is Anaconda. So this is sort of where I where I code out a lot of my stuff, and it's simply because I can create an environment for that code, meaning it's almost like I'm packing libraries or classes into this one environment. So you can see here, if I'm doing a NFL portfolio project, I can download certain classes like pandas or matplotlib or other specific libraries instead of just downloading them to my whole computer, or for yeah, instead of downloading to the whole computer, I can keep it in this packed, neat, tight environment. And I think it also has something to do with if I'm going to distribute this to other people, it's all packed inside of a box. Again, that's not really my area of expertise, but I do I do like this environment, this segmentation, just because it keeps things very neat. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new environment for this project. So if you have Anaconda downloaded, we're just going to do create. Let's call it Spotify Data Pull API, right? And we're using Python. So if you want to choose the version, but let's just do, this is the default version, and we're going to create. And this will take a few seconds to create. And while it's loading, I'll tell you just the next 2 steps. All we're going to have to do is we're going to have to install Jupyter Notebooks, which is super easy to do with Anaconda. And we're going to be uploading our 2 libraries that we're going to be using, in this case, pandas, or installing, I should say, pandas and Spotipy. Okay, so let's install those 2 libraries first. So all we're going to do here is, you could see this is our new environment created. So let's open the terminal. And if you've never played with the terminal, don't worry, this is really nice and simple. But you could see this is, I guess, my local name. Now you know my name. Great. But this is our environment. We're in Spotify Data Pull API. And all we're going to do is pip install pandas and Spotipy. And I'm pretty sure you could do this together. You don't need like 2 separate pip installs. So we're going to let this load out. Perfect, 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 perfect. So that should have worked. We'll see that in a second. Now we're going to go up to here. We're going to look for Jupyter Notebooks, and because this is a new environment, we have to install Jupyter Notebooks. This is going to take a few seconds as well, nothing to worry about. Boom. All right, it's loaded up. So now let's just launch Jupyter Notebooks. Nice, easy, simple, beautiful. Wait another second or two. Boom. And it's up and running. So it'll just do this one right here in our web browser. And I already created my PYMB, which is PYMB is just the Anaconda Python file. So let's find it. And it was, what is it? Spotify API demonstration. So let's open it up. It might block you. If so, just click on the URL, and then there should be a little window here. Now I'm on Mac. It might be a little different for you. And you can see we have a few things going on. So first, we're going to have to import certain modules. Spotipy, which is the library or class that makes it super, super easy to interact with the Spotify API. This Spotify OAuth, which just has to deal with authentication. And then Pandas. And why did I download Pandas? I guess we're doing some changes on the data. So that's why I downloaded it. Oh yeah, because data frames. So that's why. So now this is the test of all tests. We're going to see. So wait a second. We just did step 2. We created our environment for coding, and we're about to check if this environment works, right? So now we're on step 3 of 4, right? And we're almost done. Only 3 of 4. So we're gonna see if this runs. Wait a second. More loading music. Bam! And you could see it ran. We didn't get an error message, and you could see this 1. It went from a star to a 1, indicating everything is looking magnifico, magnifico. Okay, so now let's review our code. So super simple, super simple. So up here we have all of our authentication and just connecting initially into the Spotify library, which we can connect to the API. So it looks a little crazy, but let's just go step by step and tackle this. So first thing we're going to do is enter our client ID. Now don't freak out. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this right now. So we're going to go back to our Spotify API, right? Hopefully you didn't close this page up. And let's see, is it in settings? Yes, it is. So you can see our client ID is right here and our client secret is right here. Now let's just first take our client ID, go into here, replace that. So now we are signing it to a client ID variable. And then let's go and view the client secret. Now I am showing you the client secret because this is going to be deleted. This API is going to be deleted after I put the video on, so nobody can like hack me or whatever. But you don't want to share your client secret with everybody. It's a secret, right? So keep your client secret secret. And I will mention that it's probably bad to just copy and paste your client secret like this. There definitely, if you're going to be putting this into production, there are definitely more secure methods to do this. But because I'm just pulling my personal Spotify data and it's really not that serious of a project, I'm not too concerned. Now, I am sharing it with you guys, but just, do me a favor. Don't keep secret. Uh, and then we're going to have a redirect URI, which again, you could probably use that local host, but for some reason I decided to use this, which is 127.0.0.1 I think this is local as well. And this might just be another way to say localhost, but for some reason I did it like this instead, so hopefully this works. So our scope, we're just going to be doing a read, right? Because we're just reading data from the system. And then we're going to be calling this Spotipy, which is the library we installed earlier. And the whole point of this library was so we can use it with the Spotify OAuth, which we downloaded as well, to put in, to essentially pull data. Oh gosh, what just happened? Let's cancel this. So you could see here we have to enter some information to Spotify to get our data because it's going to be personalized to you. So it needs to access your account. So first off, the client ID, which was up here, client ID, client secret, which is right here, client secret, the redirect URI, which is right here, redirect URI, our scope, which is right here, reading scope, and then our cache path, which I put Spotify token cache. Not exactly sure what this does. I wish I could give you more information on it, but maybe that's a challenge to you. Go find what it does, leave it in the comments below, like, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the dislike button if you didn't like it. Please don't do that. Just hit the like button twice if you didn't like it. That'll like it, then unlike it. Okay, enough joking. Okay, so let's go in. So there's two definitions I want to cover here. Functions, I guess you can call them. We're going to be getting top artists and we're going to be getting top tracks. And they're very, very similar. I mean, just look at it by eye. They're basically doing the same things. So we'll probably let's cover one more in depth and the other one we'll just kind of go over really quickly. Oh, sorry, there's three functions because we're going to be creating an artist dimension as well. And I'll show you why this is necessary. Uh, hmm, I just realized that my Power BI is on the other one. Not really sure what I'm going to do about this, but that's later Jake's issue. Okay, so let's go over what these essentially are going to be doing, or what these exactly are going to be doing. What are we doing here? Has changed since the last time it was open. Do you want to overwrite? Okay, I see. Oh gosh, I see, I see, I see, I see. I made a mistake, people. I made a big mistake. Okay, bear with me. I apologize for this. I shouldn't have had two instances of this open. Nothing's going to change on your end, and we're back to where exactly we were. So don't even worry about that, right? Showing you how the sausage is made. So we have two functions right here. So get top artist. Let's go over this. And you see it accepts two arguments, time range and limit. And we're going to get into those in a second. But essentially what we're going to be doing is putting in a time range like short term, medium term, long term listening habits, and then a limit, the amount of pulls we want to take from the system. Maybe we only want the top 10, top 20. I think there's a 50 limit on here, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be using. But essentially what we're going to be doing is calling this function, and we're going to be using Spotipy, that's this SP, right? Because we shortened it up here. Where is it? Oh, here. So SP is the Spotipy library or the Spotify call we made. And now we're going to be using that. So we're going to use it to get current user top artists. And you don't have to remember all this stuff if you just went to like the Spotify module, or I wonder if it's the same here. Like, let's take a look at this. Get track, get users saved tracks, users, get users top items, track object, artists. No, that doesn't look like it. Well, I'm not happy about that. I was hoping it would have been a lot easier, but I guess that's why we're using Spotipy. So if you just go to like Spotipy documentation here, you're going to be able to see all the calls. Here we go. So you can see there's all different calls here we can make. So like current user playlist, current user. So if we were to go down to current user top artists right here, it'll tell you like get the current user's top artists and then what sort of limits or offsets or parameters we need to be putting in here specifically. So we're going to be calling this function here in the Spotipy, and we're going to be using time range equals time range, and the time range is going to be coming from this variable right here, and the limit equals limit. Limit's going to be coming from this right here, and we're going to have the top artists at this point. Here we're just making an empty array to dump all of our artists into, and this is going to be like an array of arrays. And what I mean by that is every artist is going to have an array, and it's going to have information. So artist ID, artist, the genre, the popularity, the image URL, the time range that they're in. And all we're going to be doing here is we're going to create a for loop where for every artist in this top artist items, this is the top artist. Remember, we just got, so these are all of the artists we have. And we're going to go one by one. For every artist, we're going to go into the data, or sorry, we're going to take our array and we're going to append all of this information for every single artist. And this is a for loop, right? So it's going to run through all of the top artists and grab all of this information for all of our artists. And then we're going to have it in an array. And at that point, we could just take this array, throw it in here, create a data frame for it. And what is a data frame? If you're not familiar, imagine just an Excel file, right? When you first open it up, that empty that empty box grid, that empty grid you get to input your data, imagine that being our data frame. So we're going to be taking our data, right, this artist data, this array, and we're going to be copying and pasting it into that Excel file, right, quote unquote Excel file, because it's not an Excel file, it's a pandas data frame. And we're going to be returning that. So what does that mean? So we're going to be returning that where we called the function. And where did we call the function? Well, we called it in our main, right? So you could see here, where is it? Right here. So this is our call, get top artists, our function, that function I just showed you, this is it. So get top artists, we're using that function here. You can see it's a lot shorter here, and it's all the information is up top. But down here, it's really short. And this makes it reusable. This makes it just easier to understand and maybe more organized as well, rather than just copying that code straight into main. So you don't need to create a function. You could take all this code and just copy it into your main right here and replace this line. But this is the way I like to do it, and it'll teach you about main and functions, which in coding is actually an important topic. So we're going to call that, right? We're going to call that function. We're going to input a couple pieces of information, the ranges, which are going to be short term, medium term, and long term, and the limit, which is always just going to be 50. Now, what are we doing up here, right? Let's go over the main, right? This top area right now. Let's just go through it. We're creating two empty data frames. Remember, those data frames are just Excel empty. Imagine those empty Excel grids or data sheets or whatever you want to call it. We're creating those, we're going to create three time ranges: short term, medium term, and long term. And why do we do this? Well, it's because these functions in Spotipy, you can look at your listening habits in the short term, in the medium term, and the long term. So these short term, long term, medium term are actual, not definitions, but they're inputs you can do to get different subsets of the data. If I want to see what am I listening to in the long term, maybe that's 2 months, 3 months, whatever that is. First, what am I listening to in the past week? You could see how you can get different sets of data. And we want all of these. We want all of these sets of data. So you could see here, uh, what we're going to do is really simple. We're just going to take a for loop. And remember what our for loop does. It just runs through every piece in the area we feed it. And in this case, we're feeding it the array from up above. So it's going to run through short term, run this code. Then go back. Medium term, run medium term. Long term, run long term. So this is a really good way, instead of having to copy and paste this 3 times to get short term, medium term, long term, because otherwise you would have to do something like this: short term, right? And look how we just lengthened our code. It's unreadable. Instead, just put a for loop here and loop through all these time ranges. Okay, cool. So here we're calling get top artist. We're putting the range from whatever's being rotated through or for looped through in this instance. So first it's going to be short term, and the limit, the amount, is 50. And the reason I use 50 is because you can't, the Spotify API only allows you 50, right? Okay, so 50 max. And I said, let's just use 50 max. So here I'm just creating new a new column in this data frame top artist that's called rank, because I want to see, okay, what was my top listened to track, then my second top. So all I'm going to be doing there is taking the index, and the index, imagine an Excel sheet. There's an index on the left hand side that says like what row it is, and it starts with 0. So what we're going to be doing is doing, instead of 0, we're just going to add 1 to it. So instead of starting at 0, it's going to start at 1. So every single piece of data in this, it's going to be the top artist. It's going to be assigned a rank. So the 0th row is going to be my top artist. This first row, like the number 1 index, which is really my second highest artist, is going to be rank number 2. So that's why I'm adding 1 to the index. So instead of doing 0, 1, 2, 3, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, so you can see we did that up here. And then all we're going to be doing at that point is taking the data frame we just created, and we're going to be concatenating it, or imagine just like combining 2 data frames together, and we're going to be expelling it out into this final artist fact. Now, why are we doing it like this? Because we're going to be for looping through. And if you just left it in df top artist, instead of adding to your data frame, it's just going to copy over the data frame. So imagine df top artist, we didn't create this final artist fact, which is defined outside of the for loop. Imagine we didn't do that. What's going to happen is it's going to call this get top artist, assign it to df top artist right here, and instead of adding short term, then medium term, then long term, it's going to have short term, and then the for loop is going to go over it again. It's not going to save it. Instead, now it's just going to assign medium term to this variable, and we'll lose our short term data. We don't want to do that. We want to append short term, medium term, and long term into one data frame. And we do this by using this concat method of taking this taking this data frame we created, df top artist, and putting it into our final artist, and then just expelling out again, like take the sorry, take the current final artist fact, then add to the list. So if this is empty, then it's going to be empty and add short term. And then when we come around the second time, this will have short term in it, and we'll add medium term to it and create a short medium final artist fact data frame. And then we're going to go around it again, and we're going to have short medium in it and assign long term. And it's going to add long term to the short medium and to get short medium long. And we're going to do this exact same thing for the tracks. And we're not going to go over tracks in too much depth just because it's the exact same thing essentially. You could see here we're making that call to Spotify. We're doing a for loop to get our top tracks. We're getting these certain columns. These are going to be our columns. We want track, the album, the artist, the popularity, and then we're going to be appending, or sorry, we're going to put that into the track data array like we did before, putting that array into a data frame and then returning it. And we're going to go through that same process where you put it in the for loop. You can see it's just down here. So everything I just described, it's the same thing for top artists that it is top tracks. Okay, and we're almost there. I promise you. I promise you. Just hold on for a few minutes longer. We're going to be done with this code. So one more thing, and not to get too crazy about this, but this has to do with functionality. And I created a dimension to filter artists properly in my report, in my dashboard. So this has to do with fact and dimension modeling, excuse me. And this dimension will control both artists and tracks, right? Tracks have an artist and artists have an artist. And this dimension essentially is just going to filter. It's going to be able to filter both of these tables, the artist and the tracks table, with a singular click. Because otherwise these two fact tables below, yeah, they'll have the information, but when it comes time to maybe filtering on artists on a dashboard, you now only need to do it in a singular spot, and it'll filter both these tables instead of wanting to filter artists here and this track table not being affected. This will allow it, you'll do the filtering here, and it'll dwindle down, or it'll push down to where it'll filter both this table and this table. So it's imagine doing one click controlling two tables instead of having them on two separate bases. So this is more just for functionality, but essentially what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking the artists from both the tracks table and the artist table, combining them, creating a data frame for them, going through this because you can only, this get artist dim, you can only do like 50 at a time. So we had to create this for loop to only do 50 artists at a time. Because imagine if there's 50 in the top artists and 50 in the top tracks, that's 100. You can't put 100 into this, right? Because there's a limit. So you have to put it chunk by chunk. So that's all this for loop is doing. And then concatenating, right? Concatenating to get a final artist dimension. And that's it. So at this point, we're going to have all of our data and we're just going to save it locally to a CSV. So you're going to take your data frames, final artist fact to CSV, final track stuff fact to CSV, and all artists to CSV, right? And let's run this. Okay, cool. You could see this is running. I don't know why all these twos are here. I must have a print statement. But this one I like to do where it says at the end, CSV file saved successfully. The reason I like to do this is just it tells you, okay, we reached the end, everything looks good, everything ran, and it just tells you it's done, it's saved successfully. There's no error message involved here, so it looks good. All right, cool. So we're back. I promise, less like 5 minutes, just hold on. I just want to show you the data and then show you the dashboard that I made. So this is the top tracks data. You can see we're going to get the data we pulled in. So we have the ID of the album, the artist ID, the track ID, and then you won't really understand what that stuff is because it doesn't really make any sense, but you could see then I have all my tracks. Like, what songs am I listening to? Tommy's Party by Being So Normal. I don't really know who that is. Sailor Song. Oh, I see. This is the album. It's like Maggie's Farm, Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind. Where is that? Bob Dylan, Copperline, James Taylor. Your popularity score. This is going to be really cool when we look at the dashboard here in a couple moments, but it's the image URL. So you could actually get images in your dashboard. And then here's the time ranges we created. So short-term listening habits, then medium term, and long term. And remember I said, right, we're concatenating them all into one list. This is what this is going to look like, or one data frame, concatenating it into one data frame. This is what this is going to look like. And then we have that rank. Remember that index plus one we did? This is what it's going to look like. So for short term, 1 to should be 50, then medium term 1 to 50, and then do the same for long term, right? So that's one of our data frames. Same thing with the artist, right? The artist, the genre they're in, their popularity, time range, their picture. And then one last one is just the artist dimension. So this is going to allow us to filter on stuff, and it's going to take the artist from both the artist fact table and the track fact table, and you'll do fact dimension modeling, attaching it through the artist ID. So attaching this table to those other two tables through the artist ID, right? So that's what these are, and then you have the genre, right? So let's take a look at what you could create, just kind of like a simple little dashboard. This is one that I created. It's on my website. Uh, you won't be able to interact with it today because it's in Power BI, so I think you would have to like request access for it. You could definitely try, and if I see you on there, I will try to accept it. But I haven't gone through that process with anybody else, so it just may not work. But if you have a Power BI Pro license, you can try to sign in, see if you can get access. Um, but you could always like message me or on the video or try to get access and see how it works out for you. You know, access it through jakelender.com and then just kind of go, oh God, I hope I didn't mess this up. Spotify project, right? When you log in, hopefully it saves, and it did. And I have access to it because it's my account, so it loads up like this. I think you might, for security reasons, not have access. So you can see here I have our terms: long term, medium term, short term. So right now we're on long term, and you can see what songs am I listening to. So this sleep noise, which is really annoying because I live in a city, so I use this. I wish this didn't appear in my top tracks. I'm going to try to take it out because you see it sort of like ruins this whole entire dashboard now. Because look, all of these top ones are just like sleeping noises. Like obviously I don't want that in my top tracks. So this might be something I try to remove eventually. You could see the artists for those top tracks and then the popularity. So the popularity is not how often I listen to it, it's if you're listening to it. So the Beatles is going to have a high popularity score, right? But someone like, what's surprising is like jamming Bob Marley has a popularity score of 12. That's really surprising. And what you could do is hover over it. I created this cool little box thing where now you could see the album name. You see it's like right there, you see the album art pops up, the name of the song, the artist, and then the album it's from, which is Exodus. So if we go to like Grateful Dead, you could see like the album it's from, Red Rocks, the picture of it. So really cool. Jumping over here, what artist am I listening to long term? The top is Grateful Dead. And then we're doing the same thing, just looking at popularity scores. I think the more popular they are, the greener it'll get. Like 91 is super green, and then 48 is just more gray. Then, Kanye West, Jay-Z, Bowie, and you could see, and you're just gonna get pictures of these artists: Biggie, Kroingman, Kanye, and it'll tell you like what they're in. So like rap, or like Eminem is in. Well, he's in rap. Let's go to like James. Who is this? James Brown. Let's see. Load, load, load. Soul, Motown, Funk. So it tells you a little bit more about the artist without making this super complicated by like putting it in the chart here. It sort of condenses everything. Here's Bob Dylan. It tells you what he's a part of. I like this pop-up. I think it's, I don't know, just something I do. I think it's a space saver on the main page here, and it only, you know, pops up when you hover. So I like that a lot. And then here's just like popular albums I'm listening. Sorry, what popular albums am I listening to? So the most popular is Sailor Song album. Then We Fell in Love in October, Life After Death. And let's see if we hover over this. Does it tell us? Yeah, so like here's the album art for it. If we go here, you could see We Fell in Love in October. I think what it tells you is like I don't know, I guess like the first song. I thought it did like all the songs, which I'm like all the songs I'm listening to from the album. But maybe I'm wrong? Or maybe it's just not. Oh God, nudity. I hope it didn't get flagged for that. Um, and then the hovered ones are my favorite albums. So it's the most popular albums, and then the ones I'm listening to the most out of the popular albums, which are my favorites, are these like Rubber Soul, Uprising, Sleep Noise, which is funny. And then you could switch to like, okay, what about medium term? What am I listening to? Medium term, again, it's a lot of this annoying sleep noise stuff, but Sailor Song, Gigi Perez, Morning Dew, Grateful Dead, May 9th, Bin, Girl in Red, right? Really cool stuff. And then going just to short term, same thing. Sid Simons, Jason Aldean, Joe, I don't really know how you pronounce that, but it's the guy from Stranger Things. So yeah, this is sort of what you can put together just with that simple few steps of data. You could see we have three dashboards. I try to make it pretty simple to understand and sort of enjoyable for me to go through, for somebody else to go through if they didn't really know anything about. So yeah, I challenge you just to create this on your own. If you want to just see this for yourself, you can reach out, comment, and I would be willing to just set it up for you and send you like a picture, or find a way to get you this. Maybe send you the file, the Power BI file, so you could just take it and put it on your computer and play around with it. Um, but yeah, that's really it for the video. Again, we use the Spotify API to pull data, and we can reuse that code, so I can keep updating this with the click of a button, essentially, re-uploading the CSVs and updating my dashboard, and then pushing it to my website to always keep it updated. So there is some manual intervention. I could always, I could probably make it more automated, but right now it's not something I want to take on, but it might be a project in the future. So if you like that video, don't be afraid. Like the video, subscribe, comment, all those things. It'll really help me out, and it'll really guide me to what people want to see or what's helpful to see. So I had fun making this project. I challenge you to try it. Comment what you thought of the project after you did it. If you have questions, comment below. And that's it. So I'll see you next time. Peace.